To their teammates Sunday night, and they're expected to make a statement to the public today at 3:30 when the team addresses Buckeyes fans, but they are not expected to take questions because they're right now appealing that decision. Last week, two reporters for the Ohio State student paper, The Lantern, spoke to a former Buckeye, 49ers linebacker Thaddeus Gibson, who told them that the NCAA might not have been right in its conclusion that the players were not aware of the rules. Let's bring in those two journalists who broke that story. We got James Oldham on the left and Zack Meisel. Gentlemen, thanks both of you for being here. James, you spoke to Thaddeus Gibson. What did he tell you?
I did, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. Zach and I are excited to be here representing the Lantern. I spoke with Thaddeus Gibson on Thursday for a separate article, and I asked him towards the end of the interview about the violations, and he seemed surprised and a bit taken aback. He said that he hadn't seen or heard anything like that when he was a Buckeye currently playing for the school. But he also mentioned that Gene Smith and the coaching staff told the players a lot that they weren't allowed to sell personal items and couldn't benefit or make a profit off of their athletic standing. The interesting thing is Gibson was a Buckeye from 2007 to 2009. Gene Smith mentioned in his press conference that they didn't start receiving proper education until November of 2009. So if he's to be believed, and we certainly don't have any reason to suspect otherwise, Gibson wouldn't have received that education until the tail end of his career. And as I said, he said they spoke about it fairly often.
Zach, James just mentioned his credibility. What did you guys think about his credibility?
Well, it's interesting because, Gene Smith and Jim Delaney and all these guys were pushing for the players to be reinstated and allow them to play in the Sugar Bowl. But then, pretty much all the blame was taken from the players and placed onto the OSU compliance department by saying that, we didn't do enough of a good job of educating these guys. Well, I spoke with Gene Smith a couple months ago and asked him when the Georgia receiver A.J. Green was suspended 4 games for trying to sell his jersey on eBay. And Gene Smith said, there are other opportunities for student athletes to get the money that they need. And it seems like he really harped that the OSU compliance department instructed student athletes to go that route instead of selling things, and that this is something they've been doing for a long time. So it's a little bit of an interesting predicament, which way is it? And the rules education is something that it really is tough to be objective.
James, what kind of reaction has there been on campus to this story?
With the students and Buckeye fans I've spoken with in Columbus, there seems to be a bit of a mixed reaction. Some are upset with the Buckeye players for selling these pieces of jewelry and clothing that's very emblematic of the team's success. We talk about the tradition with Ohio State and the gold pants that they receive for beating Michigan, and there are certainly Buckeye fans in this city that feel that the team was disrespected by the players' actions, but there are others that feel that the penalties were too harsh, and they're excited that the players are able to play in the Sugar Bowl. So it's certainly mixed in Columbus.
Yeah, just for those people who aren't familiar with the Michigan-Ohio State traditions, they are not actual gold pants. This is a gold charm that they get for beating Michigan. This is not a pair of pants that they sold. After your story came out, Zach, what was the school reaction to what Thaddeus Gibson had to say?
We actually haven't received word from Gene Smith or anyone in the athletic department. All attempts to reach the communications department have either been declined or they haven't had any info to share. It will be interesting to see, when Ohio State is in, once they get to New Orleans and depart for the Sugar Bowl. It's going to be interesting to see what some of the players say and, what Jim Tressel says about it after all the fallout and the reaction, because they've kept everyone pretty quiet since the whole fallout.
We also reached out to Gene Smith today, give him a chance to comment. They declined our invitation. James, those students, those athletes are going to speak today to the public, actually just after our show. Do you have any idea what they're going to say?
I don't. I haven't been given any information as to what the players are going to say when they address the public. I think it would be safe to assume that we could certainly expect some type of apology from them. As you mentioned, I know that the media aren't allowed to ask questions, so I'm not sure exactly what they'll be saying to the media, but like I said, I'm sure an apology is forthcoming.
And an apology is interesting because once the whole, everything happened, a lot of the